Bulavanak, everyone. Welcome to the Drua Talk on YouTube and going live on Facebook as well, where we are talking all things Drua and all things Swire all things regarding the Swire shipping Fijian Drua today, and of course rugby with our head coach Mick Byrne. Mick Bulla.
Bulavanak, Shane, how are you?
I'm good. This week I've been really good.
Yeah.
Naturally, last week was very despondent, as you can imagine,
Yeah.
like the rest of the country. But this week, this is something about this week and something about Monday, right?
Yeah, look, it was awesome. I think it's worth getting up at that time of the morning and watching footy like that.
Right.
I think there was expectation leading into the game, and the players delivered. And you sit around expecting to win those games, and it's a great place to be when you expect to beat Tier 1 countries, and that's exciting. And then to do it, and then Monday morning, around certainly where I was living, there was a lot of noise and
a lot of horns tooting, right?
Yeah,
I got
awesome.
fireworks in Lotoka just at 5:40 on the full time.
Yeah.
And I wonder what would happen if the result didn't go away. Then there'll be a lot of wasted fireworks.
Yeah, look, it's just the way it is. But as you say, it's been a great week, and to have that week's break now, it's come at a great time. To sit back now and be able to just take that win in, and I'm sure, speaking to a couple of people over there, that they've had a few days just to recover. They haven't had to worry about getting into training straight away. I think yesterday was their first full day of training, which gives them a great sort of 8-9 day lead into their next match.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we are, the Flying Fijians are certainly the talk of the rugby world after Monday's result. Yes, we were ranked higher going into the World Cup on the back of some really good results. But still, you wouldn't think that Fiji, that Tier 2 nation, would beat a Tier 1 nation at the Rugby World Cup. Yes, we've done it before. We've beaten Wales. We've actually beaten France in a regular test match. But that's for the rugby world to keep on talking about it, and they cannot stop talking about it. It makes it particularly special on the back of what Fiji rugby has been able to achieve on the field in the past couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, we are ranked higher than than Australia were, but the going into the World Cup, that's it's a great victory, and I think rankings leading into World Cups don't amount to much. But when you step up to the plate in a World Cup, there's a lot of tension, a lot of pressure. You're in tournament mode, which, I know test match mode is, we've been through a lot of test matches and there's pressure on test matches, but when you go to a tournament, a knockout tournament like the World Cup, the extra pressure that you can put on yourself knowing that you need to win. You're always disappointed if you don't win test matches. You go away on a November tour and you're disappointed if you don't win a test match, but you come home and you got beaten by Wales or you beat Wales or whatever it is. But in a World Cup, that means that's a loss that could knock you out of the tournament. So there's a lot more pressure on, and it just seems like last weekend our guys just managed to handle that and got a victory on the board.
And now you have been wearing jandals and shorts since your time in Fiji. You've really taken to the way we live here. You're honorary Fijian, but you're also a proud Aussie. So was there any bit of sadness for yourself personally going through that result?
No, not really. I mean, the thing that I think, from a professional perspective, I would have liked to have seen an Australian team with a little bit more experience, etc. And I know, we look at it, and I'm not involved in Australian rugby, and nor should I be making comment about it. But it's quite an inexperienced team you take to a World Cup, and I think when you're looking for the future of your country and you're looking for development, I wouldn't have thought trying to do that through a World Cup is the way. But each to their own, and Eddie, you'll no doubt. The World Cup's not over either, so
exactly.
There's a lot of pressure on everybody. But there's looking at it, they're probably missing a little bit of experience out there, a little bit of composure, and that's where our players, senior players that have been playing in France for a number of years, Weiss, the captain, where they just have that little bit of composure about them that you need in those knockout tournaments, and I thought they really stepped up for us on Monday.
But 4 years ago, of course, you were in the green and gold coaches box and designing tactics to beat Fiji. So Mick, what are some of the tactics that was going around 4 years ago as to how to beat Fiji? And looking at this Flying Fijians team right now, would those tactics still work, or we've really come a long way in the past couple of years?
Good question. The tactics wouldn't work because we knew in the Australian team, Simon was there as well.
Yeah, that's right. That's not just you.
Simon and I were sitting next to each other in that coach's box.
That's right.
We knew that the Fijian side were dangerous, and we knew they could score tries from anywhere on the field. And for us, the key was to hang on to the ball and get the phases done, and eventually you wear them down. And I think in that Test match, Fiji came out and scored a couple of quick tries and got out in front, and then sort of from the 50th, 60th minute, Wallaby started to get back on top. We started to wear them down, and then when we got up and we had a victory. That sort of game is no longer there in the Fijian team. That you can't wear this team down. This team is going to be playing for 80 minutes. They're a composed side. They play a lot better football now around holding on to the ball. They've always respected the ball because people say, oh, they don't respect the ball. Yes, they do, but the way they respect it is by keeping it alive. They respect the ball. Some teams respect the ball by hitting it up in rucks. Each team has their own way of respecting the ball. The game is all about the ball. So if you want to respect something, give it a chance to get around the field, and that's what Fiji does. So the way we respect the ball is to keep it alive. What we're doing is respecting the game a little bit more. We're actually respecting the fact that we can't just throw the ball around. Respect it, look after it, and then get it going again and get around there. And I think in the first game, we asked Wales to make 270 tackles, of which they made 230 odd, which is a pretty good effort from Wales. Not the same against Australia, a different game, but we got our points on the board, and obviously we got some good points on the board through kicking. But that's another thing that we're able to do: build pressure, get the penalties, create indiscipline in the other team, which hasn't been something that we've probably done in previous World Cups. So I think this team is playing a lot stronger brand of rugby around tournament rugby. As in, they can build a game, they can stay in a game that way, they're building their phases, and they've still got the electricity out wide that they can throw and line break and play. And, against Wales, when we got to the side and we made that little line break and then we got it there, we made another one on the other side, we threw it out wide, and we still got that ability to get people standing up and excited by the way we play footy. And then
a lot of the talk is also centered on the dominance, whether it's in defence or attack, just getting past the advantage line. So you're always on the front foot as opposed to, and then keeping the Australians on the back foot. Referee had a big play in that in terms of blowing up all those penalties in our favour for once. For once, we got some decisions going our way. I mean, how do you see that? I mean, that's clearly a tactic. It's just to use the strength we have, right?
Yeah, look, I mean, we're working hard at the discipline side of our game. We talk about it quite often that we're looking to be a disciplined team. But I'm not sure. I can't remember the number, 7 or 8 penalties last game. And that's because we're fitter. I think we just. Look, I saw the boys down here in the gym before they went away, and they were training extremely hard, and it's paying dividends now. They're able to stay in the game, and when you're able to get to that level of fitness, you very rarely get caught offside. You're getting back, you're getting set, you're trusting yourself, and we're seeing that now with this side. It's awesome to watch. They're leading the way, and as you say, the penalties usually going the other way. This week. It's pleasing to see the discipline that we've been able to maintain.
What are some plays that really made you happy, made you pleased watching across the game?
Obviously, from a point of making you pleased and happy and proud would be Simi, seeing Simi. Simi delivered what, we here would probably say, yeah, well, we know what Simi's got.
Yeah.
Probably surprised a few people at the time, but he's worked extremely hard. Unfortunately for us, this year he wasn't able to contribute for us on the field, but off the field he was great to be around. He's around the place, his leadership, he worked hard with the strategy group, he worked hard with the backs, and he's a good person to have around the place to chat about the game.
100%, and I used him for promos a lot.
Yeah,
he won the promotional award for the year at our Drua Awards. He was fantastic.
Yeah.
He didn't let it get.
He doesn't mind that stuff either, by the way.
Nah.
No, he doesn't mind that
He
stuff.
does not. He does. But you started him last year in the first season. You started him at 10 against the Blues in Melbourne. He kicked a few then. Well, you obviously knew he's a half through and through.
Yeah, he's a scrum half that we think can play 10. I know Glenn Jackson, Jacko's there, and he's a big fan of him playing at 10. Because when we started this whole program back at Lennox, Teddy had an Achilles. Caleb had a shoulder, and we brought Baden Kerr in as a sort of you call him a medical joker, but he's not really. We needed that player at the time, and so we really didn't have a lot of 10s. Tui played a bit there for us, but then Simi would go to 10 and he'd go hard at the line, he'd play hard at the line, he's got great speed, he's got a good kicking game. So, it's not untoward to think, Simi could find himself at 10 at any given time. So for him to come out last week and do it, I'm really, really happy, really proud.
Yeah.
Not surprised that he was able to deliver on the day because of the sort of the guy he is and the player he is. But also how hard he's worked this year, because when you work that hard, it's very hard to give something up, So he worked that hard that when it came time, he wasn't going to let that opportunity slip.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, he's been waiting for biding his time for a long while.
Yeah, he was great.
All right, what else? Who else struck out for you?
Well, I think our loose forwards, they're a dominance, all three of them, coming through there. You sort of don't want to just name one, but Batia, just the way he hits rucks and the way he can't be moved.
Yes.
The other fellas, when Mata runs, the way he carries hard into those rucks, they're just awesome. Those guys, Semi out on the wing, coming in through there. Now Tuisova had a great day, didn't he?
No, I mean. Imagine that.
And the skipper just continues to deliver. Yeah. Good little line break there, good step. He's got that great right foot step that he's managed to pull off in both games.
It's probably the best supporting centre going around in the rugby.
Well, he's just onto the game. You can see he's tuned into the game. He's, even that last scrum, coming in as the leader, as a back. A leader from the midfield is always a difficult part of the field to lead from, but he makes the effort to get in there. And when that last scrum, he was in there, and it's just really good to see. And of course, obviously Simi, but I like, our two locks.
Oh yeah,
they're carrying well. They're getting across the line. Big T, pulled that turnover.
That's what he did. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think everybody's, like you could go through the whole team. Everybody is pulling their weight, doing a great job.
Positively, right?
Everyone's contributing. The front rowers, obviously, when that scrum came in, and
that's right.
they had to step up to the plate at the end.
Tex was right in there.
Well, and you see that reward in their face when they win that scrum and they win that, and you go to Tex and he's down on his knees and he's
Oh, that emotion was.
The emotion is there
pure
because they're putting in everything they've got. They're giving everything they've got. And we can't ask for more than that.
Yeah. Well, what was your reaction like seeing Tex? That moment, I was.
Well, he went to ground and I went in the air. So it was like his reaction was to go to the ground and my reaction was to jump in the air. So, that's just the way it is.
Speaking of Tex, Eddie Jones in the post-match press conference specifically pointed out Tex, while talking about the contribution of the Drua. And obviously you've built this team from the beginning, Mick. Must be a good feeling to know that it's being acknowledged, even by the opposition.
Yeah, to Vita, right from day one, training, we do pre-season training, and I remember thinking, we started from a long way back in pre-season, but I remember looking at Tavita's first training session. This guy can move.
Yeah.
He's a hooker, and he can move. So he's come in with some great athleticism. He's dedicated. He's doing his uni off-field dedication.
Yep.
On-field, we set up. When we first went to Lennox, we set up all our brand new Apple computers, and we had all the laptops there for our team analysts' room and for the players to come in. And the first few weeks it was a little bit of a ghost town in there, but every night, because we were on site, we were living on site every night, without fail. Tavita was in there on the computer, looking at training, looking at games, doing a little bit of work. And
what are those endless computers? What are the players when they come and log in? What are they seeing?
They look at training. So they'll
how they did in training?
They'll have a look at training, how they did.
Right.
Also, some of the leaders type guys will have a look at the team, and they'll make suggestions around, would this play work, but this play we could do this or that. They'll have a look from there. So they'll look at training. They'll look at footage, game footage as well. The big thing is, learning how to do that.
Yeah.
Our guys, when we first did it, we had some of the best comic cuts of training because they'd see all the funny things going on in the background, So they're just learning how to utilise the computers. But every night Tex was in there doing his work, and he led the way for a lot of the other young guys. And so when Eddie names him, he's obviously seen during the year. He scored a couple of good runaway tries, and
that's right.
He's played really well. He's carried strong. He's done well, and for an opposition coach to recognise that is a good thing.
We'll move on to what's next up for Fiji in a second, but I want you, Mick. I'm going to say a few names, and I want you to give a word or a phrase that describes the person. It does not have to be complimentary.
How long have we got? I might be
I just have a few names.
I could be thinking here forever.
No. It's just a few names. Because we got to add. The Cara tells me you got to make these things interesting because otherwise it'll be just like every
we
other
could be
podcast.
Here blank noise.
Okay.
Getting me to think about things.
All right. Well, don't think.
Is this your idea, Cara?
Don't think. Just the first phrases that jump out at you.
Right.
All right. Let's start with the obvious. Sama Revolui.
A big man with a big heart and great humility.
Okay. Tex.
Student of the game, professional.
Joshua Tuisova.
A beast. It is. He's a beast. For me, he's somebody that you'd love to have in your team.
Would you have liked to coach him? Clearly you would. Who wouldn't, right?
Yeah, of course. Who wouldn't? Any coach would be mad not to say they'd love to coach him.
All right. The skipper, Weiss another level.
Look, I watched him. He's just he's a leader. Like out and out leader. He's inspiring and very, very skillful.
And some of the lesser known contributors in this squad, now we know we've supplied 18 players to the Flying Fijians, but we've also supplied a whole bunch of back office staff and coaches. We've got Glenn Jackson, as you mentioned, Brad Harris, assistant coach. We've got Peter Ulikambara, who's one of the analysts, a very important role in the team, obviously. Mastanatha, and one name to describe, William Kung. Give me one.
I think laughing is probably, you can't come up with one name for William. William's, if you can have a godfather in Fiji, he's the godfather of Fiji. So whether you've got a problem with a flight, a problem with a hospital, a problem with a car rental place, doesn't matter. You can speak to William and the problem goes away.
Okay. And now William's going to wake up and watch this. It's in the middle of the night in France at the moment, but just your message to all the players, not just the players, but the back office team who are watching us at the moment.
I think, awesome guys. It's just so proud of everything that everybody's doing there. And, we're contributing, it's Gary Mitchell, our doctor, he's there as well. So, we've got, we're contributing to staff. awesome, well done, and it's just fantastic to watch. And I know you are, but just keep enjoying yourselves. And as we get to the pointy end of this competition, just make sure you keep enjoying it, because you've done a great job.
Georgia next up.
Yep.
Tricky customer.
Yep.
How do we win this one?
Well, I think we've got to, defensively, we've got to be strong against Georgia in our set piece. We've got to be really good at securing ball. I think against Georgia, we have to ask them lots of questions. Mm-hmm. They'll come at us. They'll be physical. They were against Australia.
Yeah, they were.
They made 3 or 4 line breaks and then threw silly ball away. Mm-hmm. Could have scored 1 or 2 tries against Australia. Mm-hmm. So we know that Georgia can come at you. The thing for us is to secure our ball and to play our game. I think that's the biggest key. Expectations should be the same, but we're all human, so we're playing Wales and Australia. You look at the pool and you go, we've got to beat those 2 sides. Mm-hmm. And you come up against Georgia, you need to take the same attitude. You need to play the same way. You need to go out and get your set piece and play the same game we've played.
Yep. No complacency.
Complacency. Yeah, no complacency, but not so much complacency, just taking the finger off the direct way we've been playing. Yep. If we play that sort of game and trust that when we get across the game line and then we can throw it wide, that's when we'll open them up. But if we think we can just start playing a little bit looser sort of rugby, Georgia will be able to deal with us up front. So we need to really muscle up, and we'll then work them into the ground, and then we'll finish the game off. I think we'll finish the game off a lot stronger than Georgia.
I expect Breder to give us all the secrets for Georgia rugby. He was there. He was there not too long ago.
Yeah. The thing about all this, like we were there in Wallabies 4 years ago. That wouldn't have helped Simon at all. Yeah. He's looking at a completely different team, and you'd like to think you know a little bit about it, but that's so 4 years is a long time in footy.
Yeah, it is. So tricky one. This one, what do you do with the team at this point, at this stage, with the results we have now, with who's coming up next? Do you rotate players, or do you just keep powering through like with the first 2 games? Generally, very similar squad. What do you do at this point?
Well, you got to look at the loads, without getting bogged down in boring stuff.
Yeah.
You got to look at the loads of the players and who might be carrying some niggly injuries that could do with a bit of a break.
Yeah.
There's also combinations you want to keep going with.
Yeah.
So the combination of the centre might be something you want to keep going with, but then you've got Weiss who's played every minute, and you want him to be fresh, especially if this Monday goes well.
Yeah.
Wales beat Australia. Then you're sort of looking at, obviously the next 2 games you don't want to get too far ahead of yourself, but in a tournament, you've got 4 games, and then hopefully you've got another 3. So, but if you can get past Monday, we've got 5 games and hopefully 2
more.
So then you sort of look at that may assist in the decision making. But the big one is you want to keep your team going, you want to keep momentum going, and if you have to give a spell to 1 or 2 players, you do that. And I'm sure the way the squad is going and the way Simon and the coaches have looked after them, and from when they went off island and Tavuni, and just did that work. Tavuni.
There you go.
There we go. Yep. And then when they went there and got back to the roots of their culture, that would carry forward. If players weren't getting picked, you're not going to find them getting selfish about their own concerns. They're there as one big group. Yeah. So I think it's important that those things are all taken into account. But the big key is you want to continue momentum. You want to get through the next 2 games building into a quarter final. If Monday goes well for us, then that's what we're looking forward to.
Let's talk about Monday. How do Australia pull this one out of the fire?
Well, Australia's got the ability to score.
Yep.
They can score tries. I think there's talk that, we talked about last week that, what the changes they might make. I think if they bring Kellaway in, he adds a bit of spice to their back line. He's a good player. He's got a little bit of X factor about him, and then you've got, Pataya, Korobiti,
the Samu there.
Yeah, and Samu. All of a sudden, Nawanga Ni Tawase.
Yep.
He's
Marky Mark.
Marky Mark. He's, I think all Fijians scored tries last week, didn't they?
Yes, the Fijian scoring affair.
So
unfortunately, 2 of them for the wrong side, but that's all right.
But they're all Fijians scoring tries, so they can score.
Yep.
If they can get the ball. They just need their forwards to handle the attritional game that Wales will bring.
Mm-hmm.
If their forwards can handle that, then that's how they do it.
Okay.
They get the ball to those sort of guys on the edge, and they're a dangerous side. They've shown that over the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those players have been pretty damaging for them.
You mentioned Callaway. He was in the Dislo test in Melbourne, the one that should have won.
Yeah.
Except for the last call not going their way. You watched that game, didn't you?
Yep.
It was a talk of the rugby town.
Yep.
Because of what happened at that moment. What do you make of that particular moment when the ref pulled that up?
It's an unusual decision.
Mm-hmm.
But he did warn them.
Mm-hmm.
And he gave them plenty of chances just to kick the ball. And I think if you look in the background, you can see, Faketi screaming at him as well. So even Byrne's teammates knew that
that's coming.
The ref wasn't mucking around. He'd obviously given them a pretty stern warning. And I think a guy like Sam Whitelock, you and I were chatting about it the other day. He was onto it.
He was yelling. He was telling the ref.
There was no coincidence that he was on the ball within 1 second of that ref turning it over. So, that's the composure you have in a game to be able to stay in the game like that with the ref and what's going on under pressure, and that's experience. And I think that's what our leaders are doing well. Under the pressure of the game, they're staying alive for the game.
Is that missing in Australia at the moment?
I think it is. I think they've had 6 captains in 7 games.
Yeah,
that's a challenge for them. I think it is missing.
What do Wales need to do to beat this Aussie team?
Well, they just have to play like they played against us.
Yep.
They played well. We wore them down. We played good fast footy in that last 15 minutes. But they did well. They got on top of us and they put points on the board. And I think that's what they have to do this week. They have to come out, be physical up front, and then kick their goals, which I'm pretty sure they'll be able to do.
The emotion happening in Australia right now, particularly from former players and everyone invested in the game. I mean, you understand it. There's a lot of anger. It's flying all over the place. You understand it, don't you? They're desperately looking for some answers.
Yeah, look, I understand that's passion. And sometimes when you're passion and you're passionate about something, you either say things you wish you could take back, or you just get you get angry and annoyed. And that's the thing about the passion. The love and the hate. It's the same sort of emotion.
Yeah.
The opposite of love's not hate. The opposite of love's indifference. So if you've got passion, you're going to be in that love-hate. If you didn't care, well, then that's the opposite to love, being indifferent.
Yeah.
And so therefore you would just be, I don't care. So at the end of the day, it's having that passion creates that angst. And, you can understand it, especially from former players who have been in that situation. I saw with the Drew Mitchell one, and Simon responded. Look, I know Drew, and he wouldn't have been that, but I know Simon. Simon's like, well, hang on, give us a little bit more credit than that, It sounds condescending. Well, I'm sure, I know Drew well, he wouldn't have been looking at it from a condescending
That wasn't his
perspective.
intention.
But he would have been looking at it thinking we expect to beat Fiji. And look, I think the way some of our own press has reacted since Monday, not surprised, but it's a victory that
Overjoyed,
but it was a victory like we weren't sure before the game.
Yeah.
And I think we sort of accept that, and I'm pretty sure that, Drew's looking at it from a point of view of, pretty angry about, Australia losing. Again, they would have felt they would go
And
into
before
it
the
a
World Cup, when you're planning it, you think, here's a win.
Well, here's a win. Like we look at it from our perspective, and there's two big games, and we could win those games. We can win those games. That's what we think. Maybe Australia thought they should win that game. Maybe that's the difference.
Right.
If they're going in there thinking they should win it, then that's an issue. But if they're going in thinking we can win that game, then that's a genuine feeling. So I think you do get a little bit upset for it, and I guess they're just some of the players and some of the noise coming out of Australia is just confusion more than anything. It just seems, they're not sure. I mean, Eddie's got a plan. Eddie's a smart man. Eddie knows where he wants to go.
You've worked with him before?
Yeah, look, I've known Eddie for a long time. I was at the Brumbies in the late 90s. I was only down there one day a week, but his influence on my day was massive. So he's that sort of guy. He's probably shared that with his coaching group or his management group, and they've got a plan and they know where they're going. And it's not up to him to share it with everyone else. It's up to him to just instill it in his team. And the players are talking, positively about what they're doing. They're all sort of heading down the same path. And so I think it's just frustration when a result comes where some people, probably think, well, we should have won that. Well, maybe you should have, but you, as Simon quite rightly, you look at it and go, well, hang on a minute, why should you have won that?
Yeah, exactly.
Like we're capable of beating you guys.
Yeah.
Give us some credit, And I was just. Who knows where things will head? Australia beat Wales and they're back in it, and then it's all on for the last two games of our pool.
That's exactly right. Like it's not, even for us, it's not a set conclusion. It's not a foregone conclusion. We still got to win well.
Yeah, we've got to chalk up our bonus point wins. And that's not discrediting our opponents. That's saying that we need to go out and play well. And we got 2 bonus points against Wales, which still will come back.
It'll be telling in the final cutoff.
There's not many teams will get 2 bonus points in the one game. So we're able to get 2 in one game, which helps us.
One quick one about one of your former teams, the All Blacks, that first up result against France. Unexpected, do you think?
Well, France are going well. I think France are. They've come into this World Cup, but they've come into every World Cup since I've been around as one of the teams to beat. And, 2003, I thought they were going to win it in 2003. They'd had a great Six Nations. They had a very good side. They just got a wet night against England in the semi, and, just a couple of kicks didn't go to touch, and, they didn't find their way around, and England kicked very well on a wet night in Sydney, and England got through, but France were probably a better team that year. So they've always had a team there and thereabouts. 2-11, they got beaten by the All Blacks in the pool games, and then they came out and the final went to 8-7. So they've always been a side that have been capable of winning a World Cup. This year they just seem to be better than they have been in the past. They're at home. They've
very
got
passionate crowds.
They've got some. They're playing some great rugby, and they've got some real talent. I noticed today their scrum half captain got a whack. Our best thoughts go out to him, because it'd be a shocking way to finish the World Cup if that was to be the nasty injury that's suspected. But they've got tremendous players. Both wingers, the young fella on the left wing, he's electric. They've just got a really good side.
They've got a hooker who can play back row. which is great.
Yeah, they've got look, and they're at home, and they're as good a French team as come to any World Cup. So, beating the All Blacks the first game, and I said before the tournament's over, before the tournament started, there's a potential, and I know our guys will be doing everything they can to break it, but there's a potential for the first game of the World Cup to be the same as the last game of the World Cup.
Right, of course.
We'll do something. We'll say something about that. But I think that was the first loss that the All Blacks have ever had at a World Cup.
Yeah, that's right.
In
pool play. Yes.
Yeah, in pool play.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's been a couple other nasty ones that we don't want to talk about.
With you in the coach's box.
We don't want to talk about those, but yeah. So the pool games. So yeah.
Last point before we wrap up. South Africa and the other rage going around in the rugby world, the 7-1 split on the bench. Obviously, put out a very strong first 15, and then you look at the bench, and there's the 7 boppers sitting over there with one, Cobus Reinhardt, I think it's his name, the halfback who offers some utility. Brave move. What do you think of that tactic, or is it to each their own?
Look, I think if you've got players like South Africa, they've got hookers that can be flankers. They've got flankers that can be wingers. They've got scrum half that can be wingers. A 7-1 just gives you, an ability to have 7 big men on the field. And if some of those big men on the field can play in the midfield or out wide, then it's a luxury to have. I don't know. Like, is it? People talk about the spirit of the game. Well, I don't know. I didn't grow up. I grew up playing rugby and rugby league as a kid, and I played till I was 16, 17. But I didn't play professionally, so I didn't come through that professional era as a player. So, I'm coming from the outside, if you like. But I think that's, you've got 8 on the bench, and if you've got a team that you can put 7 players that are deemed as forwards, but some of them can be backs. Well, that's a pretty powerful place to be.
Is it a bit telling of their game plan, though? Which is that collision area, the dominance, the forward dominance?
Oh, I don't know whether you need to have 7-1 on the bench to talk about South Africa's collision game. That's been, a 5-3 bench. They're still going to talk about.
I mean, they are your old nemesis. You've had how many campaigns against them with the Wallabies?
And I remember in at a luncheon we were there, and Richie McCaw was asked in one word to describe the teams, and he was asked to describe South Africa, Australia and New Zealand, and when he came to South Africa, his word was brutal, and I don't think that's changed. I think they are a brutal team to play. They come after you and they're physical. So whether it's 5-3, 6-2 or 7-1, they're a brutal team. Right. And I don't think they're giving anything away by the way they want to play. That's always the way they've played. So I don't think their bench is saying, they're going to come after us physically. They come after you physically with a 5-3 bench. So I think it's just a matter of saying we've got some flexibility here. We've got a couple of big men that we can push into the midfield that can play, hookers that can play flankers that can go to the midfield. It's, I suppose it's a luxury that you'd like to have. Some sides have a little bit, they've got some good gas outside. I suppose the risk they run is if they lose a couple of their real explosive outside backs, they lose a little bit of that pace they have. But that's just the way it is. It's a strategy.
All right, Mick. As we wrap up, just got some questions from the floor from those watching. Is one of them from my mom? No, it's not. Okay, I just double checking. All right. So we talked about Simeone Coulibaly, brilliant player, 14 points, wonderful. His development and the rest of our 18 or 17 guys who are on the Flying Fijians. You're very proud. You see them; they're on the right track, aren't they?
Yeah, they've been. The biggest thing we had to do was to help them become professional rugby players. The talent is there. We know how much talent is here. We know how much talent's coming through. We've always had the ability to have talented players. The challenge for us was helping our talented players understand what it is to be a professional rugby player, what it is to have a good diet, what it is to remain hydrated. And that, look, you'd be surprised how much work we've had to do in those two areas.
Sleeping.
sleeping, these things, hydration is a big one.
Yeah.
We still have issues. We'll still have days where we come in and we'll have 7 or 8 players who are dehydrated. It's just they're not in the habit of drinking lots of water, which I find surprising because I'm thirsty every 5 minutes here. But I think it's just, it's all those little things that the players have had to do, and their strength and their conditioning work. The rugby stuff, we've had to teach them a little bit about control, playing the 15-man game, respecting the game, keep the ball alive, but respect the game. The game requires us to have 3 people at a breakdown to protect that ball, another 3 here, not just blindly throwing the ball. So we've done a little bit of work there. But the work has really been the players. The players have had to do the work. We've set down some platforms, we've set down some programs, but it's the players that have to turn up and do the work. And they do, and it's inspiring to watch them. I've said it many times, it's inspiring to watch how hard they are prepared to work. And they're getting the reward very early on in their careers for some of these players.
Yeah.
They're getting a chance to go to a World Cup, play on the big stage, and they're only in their 2nd year of professionalism. So it's a reward for the hard work, but it's also an opportunity for them to get better and see what is available to them from this game of rugby that everyone here loves.
What are you going to do with them next year for the next season? Obviously, they're all coming back with, 18 of them coming back with World Cup experience. Our leaders are there.
Yeah.
Senior players are there. Some young ones are there.
Yeah.
And you have all this talent rich talent to use for next
It's
season.
exciting. It's exciting, and the big thing is letting them come back and share with us how they think we can all grow.
Yeah.
We've got young guys coming into our squad. We've got our academy players here that'll be looking up to those players there, and they'll be actually able to train now with World Cup flying Fijians. So they'll be inspired by that. We expect our players to come back and just be who they are, be who they were when they left, come back, show us a new way, show us a clear path, how we get forward, how we improve moving forward now. And just keep growing and just keep getting better, and we should be in a really good place.
Okay. All right. Who do you expect to stand out? This is from the floor. Expect out in the match against Georgia. Which players? Any names pop up for you?
No, look, I'm not sure. I'd like to think Celestino could get a crack this week, and I think if he gets a run against Georgia, he'll show up. It's hard to say without looking at selections. I don't know. They might look at a guy like Sefa Musi, because they might give him a run off the bench to give the skipper a breather during the game, to be able to sort of say, well, we want our leadership out there. We want the combinations working, but if we can get our game going well enough, we might be able to give our skipper a breather, and to see someone like that get on there. But I think against this side, against Georgia, for us to show our individual talents, we need to play the game like we did against Wales. Yep. We need to go out there and hit the rucks, hit it up well, play our game like we've been doing, our big blocks, hitting over the gain line, getting our loose forwards around the corner at pace, and then just shifting it to the width and seeing the spaces open up. If we play that sort of game, I think it'll be a lot of individuals that get a chance to shine. The challenge is always if someone tries to be a little bit too much on their own, we lose our shape and we never actually get to show what we can do. So I think if we can stick to our tasks as 15 on the field, sit in the game plan we want to play, we'll see some individual brilliance, which our players can bring.
Yeah. Here's a weird one. Are there incentive once you qualify for the quarterfinals from World Rugby? Is there some money coming through? Do you know? Or you haven't had to deal with that. You've always been in quarterfinals and beyond, haven't you? For every World Cup.
There was one there we didn't get beyond, but that's
you don't want to
talk about that one.
I don't think so.
Oh, look, I think they're internal.
Yeah.
I don't think maybe there's things for the country unions.
Yeah.
I don't know, to be fair. I've never been anything that's really concerned me.
Well, maybe this on the back of this World Cup, we get more Tier 1 tests. like Australia, we haven't played Australia in quite a while in a regular test match. The All Blacks are coming and are playing us. They played us in 2021 or 2022, or whichever one it was,
21.
and then they're coming next year,
Yep.
which is good. But I mean, there is pretty good incentive to be able to get more regular Tier 1 tests.
Yeah, the Tier 1 tests are really good. Simon mentioned it the other day. It's if you could take a certain amount of money versus a game, you'd probably take the game because the experience your players get to go out against Tier 1 countries is fantastic.
Yeah, it's invaluable, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think also, World Rugby going, we've invested in the islands, and a lot of our players here in Fiji have gone offshore to make a name for themselves in the professional game. And now with Drua here, they're able to stay on island and get some professional experience. It might be time for the Rugby Championship and World Rugby to look at. We are in a Tier 1 category. We know we're sitting above one of the Rugby Championship teams. Maybe we deserve to be part of that, and then that will boost even more. That sort of experience, playing those sorts of games where you go out each week and you're not sure whether you're going to win. That's a really good place to be. And the growth we have there, it's like our Drua team from last season to this season, understanding that we're going out there with an expectation to perform, but there's no game you can say, oh, we're going to win this game. You go out there and you've got to have an expectation that you have to perform really well. And if you perform really well, the results will take care of themselves.
Absolutely. There's a question here for me. Is this
go?
It's not a coaching question, unfortunately. It's a commercial one. How do we entice more world-class sponsors for Fiji Rugby and the Fijian Drua? How can we maximize this for even more sponsorship opportunities? Well, I will say, and Mick, you'll agree with this, we're blessed to have a very good family of sponsors, right from Swire shipping and to every category who sponsor us. Yes, doing well really helps. Performing well, winning is obviously is great, but sponsors like to align themselves to teams that are doing well. It doesn't have to be just a win; it can be doing something well in the community, because it's through a sporting team that sponsors and commercial companies can get to their fan bases. So ultimately, that's what they're after. It's a big consideration for commercial companies as to how they can entice and reach a particular audience, and a lot of times these audiences are these passionate fans that follow a particular club, not just rugby, but it can be across any sport in the country. And one of the things that we're trying to do is to work with the national sporting organizations to help them bring their commercial game up, so they can actually get more revenue. Because when you go and recruit players, you go find resources we've created this facility here. You need the money, you need the funding, you need the revenue to do it.
Yeah, you do, and I think also it goes back to what we were talking about before about the Tier 1 games. If we, sponsors are looking for a return. They've got an ROI they're looking for, and the ROI, lots of times the return isn't necessarily monetary. It's the fact that they're being part of the community, as you said. But the other one is too, if you at the moment we're a game you're sponsoring, and we're in a New Zealand or Australian market every weekend, for that season, and but if we were to get if we were able to as a national team to be able to get Tier 1 nations come here as well, there's more incentive again. The game is growing even more, and that feeds back down into us as well. So
we benefit from it.
Yeah,
the players benefit from it.
Players benefit, the sponsors benefit from it. So I think we just got to keep winning games of footy.
Here's a question coming up. Someone's really excited about Armstrong Ravula in Wanganalanga. Our recent signing, Mick, you're pretty happy when you got that signature in front of you after a few weeks of trying, a few months of trying actually. You're excited about the two boys?
Yeah, look, I think they're two young guys that know each other well. They're going to come in here, right? Best friends. I think if you you look, I won't go through the colours, but one wears the left boot of the other,
Yeah,
you
that's
know,
right,
so
yeah.
they wear each other's boots. So they're pretty tight, but they're quality players. And, you know, as young guys choosing us when they both had opportunities to choose New Zealand pathways, to choose us and the pathway here speaks volume, not just for us, but for the flying Fijians. You know, they're looking back, seeing the opportunity now, you know, being able to make the national team. The national team is, you know, vying for and, you know, potentially post-Monday quarterfinals in a World Cup. Once you get to a quarterfinal, you know, then anything's
It's
on
one
after
game at a
that.
time then,
you know,
right?
and
Like,
if we get to the quarterfinal, and depending on how it all pans out, we could end up playing England in a quarterfinal, who we beat 4 weeks ago or whatever it is. So then we're in a semi, and well, you know, like, let's just calm down. But at the end of the day, you can see that what a tournament's like. Each new game brings you a whole new chance, and these young fellas are looking and seeing us and our growth and wanting to be part of it. And it's a really positive thing for our organisation. The two good, young, talented Fijian men have chosen Drua as a pathway for their careers. And we're really excited to have them here, and you know, they bring their talent into our program.
And just to follow up from that, we're any more signings and other things? Well, we're pretty close to our full squad at the moment, right?
Yeah, I don't think there's any more signings. You know, we're pretty full. The big challenge for us is going to be over the next couple of years is how we maintain bringing the great talent through, and because our squad is getting stronger and stronger, and because our squad is getting stronger, our younger players are going to have to be better and better to force their way into our squad, which is a great, not problem, but a great position for us to be in. And it'll cause some good debates around the selection table.
Which is good. What as a coach is what you
well,
want, right?
you want those discussions, you know, around your list, and who are we going to bring in and who are we going to sign to make our squad better. And we also know that the natural attrition of our players at the top end will go overseas. You know, Eddie Jones has rightly or wrongly put one of our players on the international map straight away. You know, if Tavita's out there already, he's showing enough for himself, but when an opposition coach sprouts your wings for you, it's, you know, so
the market values increase exponentially.
Yeah, so
right?
we know that we're going to lose players in the next 3 or 4 years, just like we said this right from day one, just like every other Super Rugby team. Our challenge is that, you know, we've probably got, you know, 4 or 5 players each year that teams are going to look at. So we have to be, you know, provide them with a great environment here, but we also have to be aware that they leave here, and we want them to be able to feel like they can come back. You know, so for that to happen, we have to continually develop our young players. So while there is that difficulty of growing our squad with talent from beneath, we know we're also going to lose some players, so there'll be that natural rollover every year.
Okay, all right. Well, folks, that's all we have time for today. We were trying to do this in half an hour, but it took about an hour because, you know, once Mick gets talking, it's hard for him to stop.
Exactly.
Thanks so much for listening in and tuning in for our Drua Talk. We'll hope to be back in the next few days. We can talk more rugby. You know, the Wales and Australia match has got repercussions for all of us, so we'll watch that and come back and have a bit of a chat about that. And I know Simi, Tex, Mira, I know you guys are all watching. I want to tell you, I have your messages, and I will do those different things for you that you want. Don't worry, it will be done. It will be done, boys. From all of us, we wish you the very best in France. Look after yourselves, and thank you, Simon, and the management team for looking after the entire squad. That's all we have time for today. We'll see you next time. Naka.
Naka. Mode